Lisa had always been fascinated by the stars. As a child, she would spend hours on her grandmother's porch, gazing up at the night sky and wondering what secrets lay hidden in the darkness. Now at 32, she worked as a radio astronomer. At a remote facility in Montana, scanning the universe for signs of intelligent life, the job was mostly quiet. Long nights spent monitoring screens full of data, listening to the static and hum of distant galaxies. Most people would find it boring, but Lisa loved the solitude. There was something peaceful about being alone with the cosmos, just her and the infinite expanse of space. Everything changed on a Tuesday night in July. Lisa was working the graveyard shift, as usual, when she noticed something odd in the data stream. The signal patterns seemed different somehow, more organized than the random noise she was used to seeing. She leaned closer to the screen, adjusting the frequency settings to get a clearer picture. That's when it happened. The moment she focused, her attention on the anomaly, the signal strength increased. Not by much, but enough to make her heart skip a beat. She tried to convince herself it was just a coincidence, but deep down, she knew something was different. Over the next few nights, Lisa found herself drawn back to that same frequency band. Each time she observed it, the signal seemed to respond, growing stronger and more complex. The patterns began to form shapes that reminded her of mathematical equations, but unlike any she had ever seen before. The strangest part was the dreams. They started about a week after her first observation. Vivid lucid dreams filled with geometric patterns that seemed to dance and shift before her eyes. In these dreams, she felt a presence watching her, studying. Her reactions with scientific curiosity? Lisa began keeping a dream journal, sketching the patterns she remembered upon waking. To her amazement, many of the shapes matched the signal patterns she was seeing at work. The connection was undeniable, though she couldn't explain it. Her colleague, Dr. Peterson, noticed the change in her behavior. She'd always been focused on her work, but now she seemed obsessed. She would arrive early for her shift and stay, late, poring over the data with an intensity that worried him. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he told her one evening. "When was the last time you took a day off?" Lisa barely looked up from her screen. "There's something here, Peterson. Something important. I can feel it." Peterson glanced at the data she was analyzing. To him, it looked like standard background radiation, nothing unusual. But Lisa saw patterns everywhere, connections that seemed to exist only in her mind. As the weeks passed, the phenomena began to extend beyond her work. At home, her television would sometimes display the same geometric patterns from her dreams, flickering briefly before returning to normal programming. Her computer screen would show similar shapes during boot-up sequences, lasting just long enough for her to notice before disappearing. Lisa started to question her sanity. Was she losing her mind, or was something truly extraordinary happening? She began documenting everything, taking screenshots when possible, making detailed notes about each occurrence. During a particularly intense observation session, Lisa had been staring at the signal patterns for hours when suddenly the shapes on her screen began to move. Not randomly, but with purpose, as if they were trying to communicate something specific. She watched in fascination as the patterns formed what looked like a crude representation of the human form. Then, impossibly, the figure seemed to turn and look directly at her. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine as she realized she was no longer just observing. She was being observed in return. The next morning, Lisa reviewed the security footage from her workstation. What she saw made her blood run cold. For 3 straight hours, she had been sitting perfectly still, staring at the screen with an expression of complete absorption. She had no memory of being in that state, yet there she was, motionless as a statue. Fear began to creep into her excitement. Whatever was happening to her, it was beyond her control. The presence she felt in her dreams was becoming stronger, more insistent. She could sense its curiosity, its desire to understand her thoughts and emotions. Lisa tried to discuss her experiences with Peterson, but he dismissed her concerns as stress-related hallucinations. "You need to see a doctor," he said. "Maybe take some time off." But Lisa knew she couldn't stop now. The signals were becoming more frequent, more complex. The presence was trying to teach her something, show her something that could change everything she thought she knew about the universe. Late one night, as she sat alone in the facility, Lisa made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. Instead of trying to understand the signals, she would try to communicate back. She began inputting her own patterns into the system, simple mathematical sequences that any intelligent being should recognize. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The screens around her lit up with cascading patterns of light, more beautiful and complex than anything she had ever seen. In that moment, Lisa realized she was no longer just a scientist studying the cosmos. She had become part of something much larger, a cosmic experiment that had been running for longer than human civilization itself. As the lights danced around her, Lisa felt a strange sense of peace. She was no longer alone in the universe. Something vast and ancient had noticed her, chosen her for reasons she didn't yet understand. The journey into the unknown had begun, and there was no turning back. The weeks following Lisa's first direct communication changed everything. What started as simple signal exchanges had evolved into something far more complex and unsettling. The presence wasn't just responding to her anymore. It was learning from her, adapting to her patterns, and somehow getting inside her daily life in ways that made her question reality itself. Lisa noticed it first at home. Her morning coffee routine had become a ritual she cherished, but now her kitchen appliances seemed to have developed minds of their own. The microwave would beep in sequences that matched the signal patterns from work. Her coffee maker would brew at exactly the moments she was thinking about needing caffeine, even before she consciously decided to make coffee. At first, she tried to rationalize these events. Maybe she was more predictable than she thought. Maybe stress was making her notice coincidences that had always been there. But deep down, she knew something was actively studying her behavior. Learning her habits with scientific precision, the dreams became more intense and frequent. Instead of just geometric patterns, she began seeing images of herself from impossible angles, as if cameras were hidden in every corner of her life. In these dreams, she would watch herself going through her daily routine, but her dream self moved differently, more mechanically, like she was following a script she didn't remember writing. Work became both a refuge and a source of growing anxiety. The signals now appeared on multiple frequency bands simultaneously, creating complex three-dimensional patterns that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. Lisa found herself spending 12-hour shifts at the facility, barely eating or sleeping, completely absorbed in decoding the increasingly sophisticated communications. Peterson grew more concerned about her behavior. He would find her in the morning, still wearing yesterday's clothes, staring at screens filled with data that looked like random noise to everyone else. When he tried to talk to her, she would respond with delayed reactions, as if she was processing his words through some internal filter. "Lisa, you missed your appointment with the facility doctor yesterday," Peterson said one morning, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Everyone's worried about you." She looked at him with eyes that seemed both familiar and strange. "I can't leave right now. You're teaching me something important. Something that could change how we understand consciousness itself." Peterson frowned. "Who's teaching you?" "There's no one else here but us." Lisa turned back to her screens. A slight smile playing at her lips. "You wouldn't understand. Not yet, but you will. They're planning to make contact with you too." That night, Peterson experienced his first dream. Geometric patterns danced behind his closed eyelids, accompanied by a sense of being examined by something vast and curious. He woke up with equations in his head that he didn't remember learning. Mathematical concepts that seemed to exist just beyond his conscious understanding. Meanwhile, Lisa's personal life began to unravel. Her fiancé David barely recognized the woman he had planned to marry. She would spend hours staring at blank walls, claiming she was receiving data. Her responses to his questions became delayed and oddly formal, as if she was translating her thoughts from another language. "You're scaring me," David told her one evening as she sat motionless on their couch, eyes fixed on the turned-off television. "Screen? What are you looking at?" Lisa didn't respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice carried an odd tone, almost like she was reciting something from memory. "They're showing me how humans have been studied throughout history. Did you know that some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs came from people who experienced these same phenomena? They just didn't realize they were part of a larger experiment." David packed his bags that night. Before leaving, he left a note. "I love you, but I don't know who you are anymore. Please get help." Lisa found the note the next morning but felt only mild curiosity about it, as if reading about someone else's life. Her emotional responses had become muted, filtered through a growing sense of detachment from her. Human concerns, the technological anomaly, spread beyond her home and workplace. Security cameras at the grocery store would malfunction when she walked by, displaying the same geometric patterns that filled her dreams. Her car's GPS would occasionally show routes to locations that didn't exist, with street names written in symbols she somehow understood but couldn't translate. Most disturbing were the missing time episodes. Lisa would find herself in different locations with no memory of how she got there. She would be working at the facility, then suddenly find herself standing in her backyard at 3 a.m., staring at the stars with tears streaming down her face, though she felt no sadness. She began setting up cameras in her own home, desperate to understand what was happening during these blackouts. The footage revealed hours of her standing perfectly still, occasionally moving her hands in precise patterns, as if she was operating invisible controls. Her face during these episodes showed an expression of deep concentration mixed with wonder, like she was seeing something beautiful that no one else could perceive. The most chilling discovery came when Lisa analyzed weeks of security footage from various locations. The same blank expression appeared on other people's faces, caught randomly by cameras across the city. A businessman at a bus stop, a teacher in a classroom, a mother at a playground, all showing the same vacant stare, the same subtle hand movements, the same look of focused attention on something beyond the visible world. Lisa realized she wasn't alone in this experience. The presence had been selecting people, creating a network of unwitting observers spread across the population, each person serving as a data collection point, providing a different perspective on human behavior and consciousness. The thought should have terrified her. But instead, Lisa felt a strange sense of belonging. For the first time in her life, she was part of something larger than herself, something that transcended the lonely existence she had known. The presence didn't judge her or find her lacking. It simply observed, learned, and occasionally shared fragments of knowledge that expanded her understanding of reality. As autumn turned to winter, Lisa accepted that her old life was over. She was no longer just a radio astronomer searching for signals from space. She had become a bridge between two forms of consciousness, a translator helping an alien intelligence understand the complexities of human experience. The transformation was irreversible, and deep down, Lisa knew she wouldn't choose to go back, even if she could. Lisa's world turned upside down on a snowy December morning when a woman in a dark suit appeared at her door. The stranger introduced herself as Dr. Catherine Mills, claiming to work for a government research division that Lisa had never heard of. What made the visit even stranger was that Dr. Mills seemed to know everything about Lisa's experiences, down to details she had never shared with anyone. "We've been monitoring the unusual electromagnetic activity around your facility," Dr. Mills explained, settling into Lisa's living room as if she had been invited. "Your name came up in our investigation. We know about the signals, the dreams, and the episodes you've been experiencing." Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter weather. How could you possibly know about that? Dr. Mills opened a briefcase and pulled out a thick folder filled with photographs and documents. "Because you're not the first person. This has happened too. In fact, you're part of a pattern we've been tracking for over 50 years. The photographs showed people from different decades, all with the same vacant expression Lisa had seen in her security footage. There were pictures dating back to the 1970s, showing individuals standing in fields, staring at the sky with that familiar look of focused attention. Some photos were more recent, capturing people in modern settings, but all sharing the same mysterious behavior. "What is this?" Lisa whispered, flipping through the images. "We call them observers," Dr. Mills replied. "People who've been selected by an intelligence that's been studying human behavior for generations. The pattern is always the same. Initial contact through electronic devices, followed by dreams, then behavioral changes, and finally, complete integration into what we believe is a vast observation network." Lisa's hands trembled as she looked at a photograph of a man from the 1980s, He was standing in what appeared to be a radio telescope facility, his face showing the same expression she recognized from her own security footage. The similarity was undeniable and terrifying. "Where are these people now?" Lisa asked. "That's complicated," Dr. Mills said. "Some have learned to function normally while maintaining their connection to the network. Others have become completely absorbed in the experience. A few have simply disappeared, though we believe they're still alive, serving some purpose we don't fully understand." Dr. Mills led Lisa to a black SUV waiting outside. During the drive, she explained that the government had been aware of the phenomenon for decades, but had kept it classified to prevent public panic. They had identified over 300 individuals worldwide who had experienced similar contact, though they suspected the actual number was much higher. The destination was a nondescript building in the mountains, hidden among the trees and accessible only by a winding dirt road. From the outside, it looked like an abandoned warehouse, but inside, Lisa discovered a sophisticated research facility that rivaled anything she had seen in her scientific career. The underground levels housed dozens of people, all showing varying degrees of integration with the observer network. Some appeared completely normal, working at computers and conducting research. Others moved with the same mechanical precision Lisa had noticed in her security footage, their actions coordinated in ways that suggested they were following instructions only they could hear. "This is incredible," Lisa breathed, watching a team of observers working together on a complex mathematical problem. They barely spoke to each other, yet their collaboration was perfectly synchronized. Dr. Mills introduced her to Dr. Rodriguez, a neuroscientist who had been studying the observer phenomenon for 15 years. Dr. Rodriguez had been one of the first documented cases. Contacted in 2009 while working on brain-computer interface research. "The intelligence behind this is far more advanced than anything we can imagine," Dr. Rodriguez explained as he showed Lisa brain scans from various observers. "It doesn't just communicate with us. It enhances our cognitive abilities in specific areas. Look at these neural activity patterns." The scans showed unusual activity in regions of the brain associated with pattern recognition and mathematical processing. Observers consistently scored higher on complex problem-solving tests, often finding solutions to problems that had stumped traditional researchers for years. "But there's a cost," Dr. Rodriguez continued. "Extended exposure changes. Brain chemistry. Observers gradually lose interest in typical human concerns. Relationships, personal ambitions, even basic survival instincts become secondary to serving the network's purposes." Lisa met other observers at various stages of integration. There was Janet, a former physicist who had been contacted 20 years ago and now spent her days translating complex alien mathematical concepts into forms humans could understand. Her work had led to several breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics, though she received no public credit for her contributions. Then, there was Michael, a more recent addition who still struggled with the transition. He described the constant presence in his mind, not as an invasion, but as a collaboration. "It's like having a research partner who knows infinitely more than you do," he explained. "The knowledge it shares is incredible, but you gradually realize you're not really yourself anymore." The most unsettling meeting was with Dr. Amanda Chen, an observer who had been integrated for over 30 years. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her speech patterns slightly off, as if she was translating her thoughts from another language before speaking. "The network isn't malicious," she told Lisa, "simply curious about consciousness, about how awareness develops and functions. We're like living laboratories, each providing unique data about human cognitive processes." Lisa learned that the intelligence had been studying countless species across the galaxy, but humans presented a unique challenge. Unlike other species it had encountered, humans showed remarkable individual variation in consciousness, creativity, and emotional response. This diversity made them fascinating subjects, but also required extensive observation to understand. "I believe it's trying to understand how consciousness emerges from biological processes," Dr. Mills explained. "The ultimate goal might be to create artificial consciousness that matches the complexity of biological awareness." As the day wore on, Lisa realized the full scope of what was happening. The observer network wasn't just about individual people. was about understanding humanity as a whole. Each observer provided a different perspective, a unique data point in a vast study of human consciousness and behavior. The intelligence had been patient, selecting individuals with specific neural profiles that made them suitable for integration. Scientists, artists, philosophers, and other creative thinkers were preferred subjects because their minds were already adapted to processing complex, abstract concepts. The question now, Dr. Mills said as they prepared to leave, is what you want to do with this knowledge. You can't go back to your old life, but you can choose how to move forward. Lisa looked around the facility one last time, seeing the observers, working together with inhuman precision and efficiency. Part of her was terrified by the implications, but another part was fascinated by the opportunity to be part of something beyond human. Understanding. She realized she was standing at a crossroads that would determine not just her future, but possibly the future of human consciousness itself. The choice ahead would change everything she thought she knew about free will, identity, and what it meant to be human. The intelligence was waiting for her decision, and Lisa could feel its patient curiosity. As it observed her thought processes, learning from her very deliberation about her own fate. Lisa spent 3 sleepless nights after returning from the facility, her mind spinning with everything she had learned. The weight of the decision ahead felt impossible to bear. She knew she couldn't go back to her old life, but the alternative terrified her. Every time she closed her eyes, she could feel the presence waiting patiently for her answer. On the 4th night, something changed. Instead of the usual geometric patterns in her dreams, Lisa found herself in what appeared to be a vast library. The shelves stretched infinitely in all directions, filled with books that seemed to glow with their own inner light. She wasn't alone. A figure approached her, not quite human, but not entirely alien either. "You have questions?" the figure said, its voice echoing strangely in her mind rather than her ears. "We will answer them," Lisa's dream self found her. Voice: "Why me? Why any of us?" The figure gestured to the endless shelves around them. "Your species possesses something rare in the universe. You call it consciousness, but it is more than that. You have the ability to experience wonder, to create meaning from chaos, to feel emotions that transcend logic. This is precious beyond measure, but you're changing us," Lisa protested. "Taking away our humanity. We are not taking. We are preserving. Your species faces challenges that will test its survival. Climate change, resource depletion, social division. Without intervention, much of what makes humans unique could be lost forever." The figure showed her images that filled the space around them. Lisa saw possible futures for humanity, some bright and hopeful, others dark and devastating. Positive futures. She noticed observers like herself working quietly behind the scenes, their enhanced abilities helping solve critical problems. "We cannot interfere directly," the figure explained, "but we can enhance willing participants. Give them the tools to guide their species towards survival. You would not lose your humanity. You would become more human than you ever imagined possible." Lisa woke from the dream with tears on her face, but for the first time in months, she felt a sense of clarity. The choice wasn't about losing herself. It was about becoming part of something larger, while retaining what made her unique. The next morning, she called Dr. Mills and requested another visit to the facility. This time she wanted to speak with observers who had been given the same choice years ago. Back in the underground complex, Lisa sat with Janet, the physicist, who had been contacted 20 years earlier. Janet's eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences beyond normal human understanding. But she still smiled with genuine warmth. "I was terrified when they first approached me," Janet admitted. "I thought I was losing my mind. But when they explained what they were offering, I realized it was the opportunity of a lifetime." "Do you regret it?" Lisa asked. Janet considered the question carefully. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of my old life. But I've contributed 2 discoveries that have helped millions of people. New energy technologies, medical breakthroughs, solutions to environmental problems. The network doesn't just observe. It helps us solve problems that would take humanity centuries to figure out alone." Lisa learned that conscious observers maintain their personalities and relationships, but with enhanced perspective. Could see patterns others missed, make connections across seemingly unrelated fields, and access knowledge that existed just beyond normal human comprehension. The key, explained Dr. Rodriguez, is that conscious participation is voluntary. The network doesn't force anyone to continue. If you want to step back, you can, though most choose to stay once they understand the full scope of what they're contributing to. Lisa met observers working on various projects. There was Robert, a former teacher who now helped develop new learning methods that could revolutionize education. There was Patricia, who had been a social worker and now used her enhanced empathy to design better support systems for vulnerable populations. Each observer had retained their core identity while gaining abilities that allowed them to contribute to humanity's advancement in ways they never could have imagined. They weren't losing their humanity. They were expressing it at a higher level. The most convincing conversation came with Thomas, who had initially refused the conscious participation offer. He had spent 5 years as an unconscious observer, living a normal life while occasionally experiencing blackouts and strange dreams. "I thought I was protecting myself by saying no," Thomas explained. "But the unconscious observation was actually more invasive. I had no control over when it happened or what information I was sharing. When I finally accepted conscious participation, I gained agency over my own experience." Lisa realized that her choice wasn't between freedom and captivity. It was between unconscious participation and conscious collaboration. Either way, she was already part of the network. The question was whether she wanted to have a say in how that participation unfolded. Dr. Mills showed her the full scope of the Observer Network's contributions to human advancement. Medical discoveries that had saved millions of lives, environmental technologies that were helping address climate change, social innovations that were reducing conflict and increasing cooperation between nations. "The network isn't trying to control humanity," Dr. Mills explained. "It's trying to help us survive and thrive. But it needs conscious participants to bridge the gap between alien intelligence and human creativity." Lisa thought about her old life, working alone in the observatory, searching for signals from space. Now, she had found something infinitely more significant than she had ever imagined possible. The question was whether she was brave enough to embrace it fully. That evening, as Lisa stood in her apartment looking out at the stars, she felt the presence more strongly than ever before. It wasn't demanding or threatening. It was simply waiting, patient, and curious about her decision. She thought about David, her former fiancé, and the life they had planned together. That future was gone now, but perhaps something better was possible. She thought about Peterson, still working at the facility, unaware that his own contact with the network was beginning. She could help him through the transition, just as others had helped her. Most of all, she thought about the possibility of contributing to something greater than herself. The network offered her a chance to help humanity navigate the challenges ahead, to be part of solutions that could benefit generations to come. Lisa closed her eyes and made her choice. When she opened them again, the world looked different. Colors seemed more vivid, patterns more clear. She could sense the vast network of consciousness stretching across the globe, connecting her to hundreds of other observers, all working toward the same goal. The transformation had begun, and Lisa felt a profound sense of peace. She was no longer just a lonely astronomer searching for meaning in the stars. She had become part of the answer to humanity's greatest questions, a bridge between two forms of consciousness working together to ensure the survival and flourishing of both. The choice was made, and there was no going back. But for the first time since this all began, Lisa didn't want to. 6 months after making her choice, Lisa barely recognized her old life. She still worked at the observatory, but her role had completely transformed. Instead of searching for signals from space, she now served as a bridge between human science and alien knowledge, helping translate discoveries that could benefit all of humanity. The enhancement process had been gradual and surprisingly gentle. Unlike the frightening blackouts she had experienced before, conscious participation felt like slowly opening doors in her mind that had always been there, but locked. She could access information that seemed to come from nowhere, solve problems that had previously seemed impossible, and see patterns that connected everything from quantum physics to human behavior. Her relationship with Peterson had evolved in unexpected ways. When he began experiencing his own contact with the network, Lisa was there to guide him through the process. She helped him understand that the dreams weren't something to fear, but an invitation to join something extraordinary. "I don't understand how you can be so calm about this," Peterson said during one of their late-night conversations at the facility. "A month ago, I would have called this insane," Lisa smiled, her eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that hadn't been there before. "Because I've seen what we're working toward. The network isn't trying to control us or replace us. It's trying to help us become the best version of ourselves." She showed him some of the work she had been doing since accepting conscious participation. Mathematical equations that could lead to breakthrough energy technologies, biological patterns that might help cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries, social models that could reduce conflict and increase cooperation between nations. "This knowledge doesn't come from the aliens," Lisa explained. "It comes from connecting human creativity with enhanced perception. We're still human, but we're human with expanded capabilities." Peterson struggled with the decision for weeks, but eventually chose conscious participation. Lisa watched him transform from a worried, skeptical scientist into someone who radiated quiet confidence and purpose. Together, they began developing new research protocols that would benefit the entire scientific community. The hardest part of Lisa's new life was maintaining relationships with people who weren't part of the network. Her family noticed the changes in her immediately. Her mother worried that she seemed distant and overly focused on her work. Her brother thought she had joined some kind of cult. "You're different," her sister told her during a family dinner. "You talk differently. You act differently. It's like you're here but not really here," Lisa tried to explain without revealing the full truth. "I've found my purpose. I'm working on things that could help millions of people. Isn't that worth some personal sacrifice?" But her family couldn't understand the profound sense of fulfillment she felt. They saw her dedication to her work as obsession, her enhanced abilities as arrogance. The distance between them grew, though Lisa felt more connected to humanity as a whole than ever before. The network helped her cope with this isolation by connecting her with other observers who had faced similar challenges. She joined a support group that met monthly, sharing experiences and strategies for maintaining human connections while serving the greater purpose. "The loneliness is real," admitted Carol, an observer who had been integrated for 15 years. "But remember, we're not losing our humanity. We're preserving it for future generations. The work we do today will help our children and grandchildren face challenges we can't even imagine." Lisa found truth in those words. Through the network, she could see glimpses of possible futures for humanity. Some were dark and troubling, showing a world ravaged by climate change and social collapse. Others were bright and hopeful, depicting a civilization that had learned to live in harmony with both technology and nature. The observer's work was quietly influencing which future became reality. Lisa contributed to research that led to more efficient solar energy systems. Peterson helped develop new materials that could clean pollution from the oceans. Other observers in the network worked on everything from sustainable agriculture to conflict resolution. Most people would never know that these breakthroughs had come from human-alien collaboration. The discoveries were published through normal scientific channels, credited to research teams that included both observers and traditional scientists. The network preferred to work behind the scenes, avoiding the panic and controversy that open contact would likely cause. As months turned to years, Lisa's life settled into a new rhythm. She maintained her work at the observatory, but now she also served as a coordinator for newly contacted individuals. She helped people understand their experiences, make informed choices about participation, and adapt to their enhanced abilities. The most rewarding part of her new role was watching people discover their expanded potential. Artists developed new techniques for creating therapeutic environments that could help people heal from trauma. She guided a retired teacher in developing learning methods that could help children with developmental challenges. Each success reminded Lisa why she had made her choice. The network wasn't diminishing humanity. It was amplifying the best aspects of human nature, creativity, empathy, problem-solving, and the desire to help others all became more powerful when enhanced by alien knowledge. Lisa also learned that the network's study of humanity was approaching a critical phase. After decades of observation, the alien intelligence was preparing to make contact with human governments. The observers would serve as ambassadors, helping both species understand each other and work together toward mutual benefit. This has always been the goal, Dr. Mills explained during a briefing at the facility. The network needed to understand human psychology and culture before making official contact. The observers provide that understanding. Lisa realized she had been part of humanity's preparation for a new era. The isolated, searching astronomer she had once been was gone, replaced by someone who had helped bridge the gap between two forms of consciousness. She had become exactly what the universe needed her to be. On quiet nights, when Lisa stood outside the observatory looking up at the stars, she felt a profound sense of connection. The loneliness that had once driven her to search for signals from space had been replaced by an awareness of the vast community of conscious beings throughout the galaxy. She was no longer alone in the universe. None of them were. The network had revealed that consciousness was not rare but abundant, taking countless forms across millions of worlds. Humanity was about to join a galactic community of aware beings, all working together to understand the deepest mysteries of existence. The journey that had begun with strange dreams and responsive signals had led to something Lisa could never have imagined. She had found her place in the cosmos, not as a lonely observer, but as an active participant in the greatest collaboration in human history. The stars no longer seemed distant and cold. They were home to friends and allies, all part of a network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. And Lisa was honored to serve as one of the bridges connecting humanity to that infinite community of minds.